Hello, everyone. I'd say grand rising, I guess, because it is still rising in both your time frames, not mine. Um, Thank you both for making the time. Kat, George, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, so I know the audience didn't see this. We had a little bit of technical troubles just before here, and I said, "Oh yeah, this is all part of the experience. It was an unintentional trust, situation we get ourselves together." I'm going to do another one now. George might be able to predict this one, but Kat won't. So everyone, even those watching, take 9 seconds with your eyes open or your eyes closed, and just be silent and just be. Let whatever thoughts drift in and out, and just be. Ready? Let's do it. Thank you, everyone. It's probably a little odd now. This is I guess this is the second conversation that we've done that, George, with. Um, I like to try and take a moment, and for anyone even watching here too, imagine how long that 9 seconds felt. I mean, it felt like a really long time, right? It was like, well, I should be thinking about something, or I'm listening to a podcast. I should be. Just think of that whenever you don't have the time, or you think you don't have the time. Think how long that 9 seconds felt when you tried to just be and just have no thoughts come in and out. So thank you all. Kat, George, welcome again. Kat, I know you haven't been on a conversation with us before, so I'd love to hear a little bit from you, just on just wherever the conversation takes us. So um, I'd love to kind of hear where you. Let me put it this way: introduce yourself and wherever you're at on today in September of 2025. What would you like the audience to hear, and what would you like to share with George and I? An introduction of you.
Okay. Well, I'm Kat Grace. I'm a shamanic practitioner and an intuitive coach and energy healer. And I had my spiritual awakening in 2017, like the big one. And now I feel like it's lots of little awakenings as take on new challenges. I'm getting to know myself in a different way. And as far as putting myself out there or, expanding my business, that was something I had some reluctance to do until about 6 months ago. And so just in that endeavor, it has been like a whole new spiritual awakening because I see the petulant child, egoic part come out when things aren't going exactly how I want. And then there's things that I had no knowledge about and I'm learning now. And it feels like a miniature spiritual awakening I'm going through. It's like all the same steps and all the confrontation with self to be able to get out of my own way. So
Yeah,
that's really it. That's where I'm at right now.
I can appreciate that very much. And there's a lot of questions I already want to ask. So let me start off. So I owe you gratitude, Kat. When I was doing a lot more conversations, George and I and others, during the time when I was between jobs, I had asked you to come to join us in a conversation, and you weren't quite there yet. And I don't recall how far away that was, 5 or 6 months, maybe it was around the same time.
Mm.
And then in July, when you reached out to me, that actually restarted me to say, okay, I'm into this new job enough. I want to start making time to do this again. So you're the reason that I really started that up again. So thank you for reaching out in July and saying, I'm ready, let's do it. Thank you for that. You you mentioned about the big awakening, as you mentioned in
Mm.
2017. Can you reflect on that a little bit for us? And just, I'm curious as to whether it might be something similar or different from maybe George or myself. Not about time frame, but just what happened in 2017 for you.
Well, I think that I was recovering from my second 360 spinal fusion. I had learned how to walk again. Um, Essentially, the neurosurgeons told me that I needed to be okay with being on pain management forever. and that I would never run a mile. I'd never wear high heels. It was bam, 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 a list of limitations.
Wow.
And it seemed I was a little bit young to just have my life mapped out for me. And so there was a lot of righteous indignation, a lot of victim consciousness, a lot of misery. And I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't run anymore. So I was in bed crying, feeling sorry for myself. Woe is me. And I started just researching holistic stuff online. And I come from a family of physicians. So even chiropractors are deemed woo woo. So my programming as far as holistic stuff was just, I wasn't even going to think about it.
Right.
But then I was given, the most impossible sentence here, and I became willing and open. So I found Joe Dispenza meditations. He had similar injuries. He recovered. I was like, okay, this isn't hopeless. So there was that little glimmer and a little bit of the shift in consciousness, and I became open. And I became open to trying whatever it took to make sure that I never had to take Oxy again. I'd be able to wear high heels, and I might not be graceful about running a mile, but I could get through it.
Yeah.
And so once that shift was made, things started happening that I did not know could happen. I thought it only happened to crazy people, to be honest. And then the spiritual gifts come online, and you're questioning everything, and synchronicities are going crazy. And I really doubted my own sanity. And it was 2017 was very touch and go. And I remember I booked a last minute ticket, flew to New York to meet with my best friend of over 20 years. And I told him, I need to talk to you. I think I might be losing my mind. And I want you to be able to put me away or something if that happens, because I don't want my adult son to have to deal with that.
Right.
And he just kind of laughed it off. And I said, I think that the universe might be giving me messages. And he's like, oh my God. Like the idea that that could happen, was far fetched. But it was a very scary year.
Wow.
But it was the big one, I guess.
Yeah, I understand. So health wise, how are you now? Like looking back now, 8 years from then?
Well, I don't take any pain pills. I deal with inflammation as far as with my diet and just clean living. I mean, my lifestyle had to change, for healing.
Yeah.
And I had a 3-level cervical fusion November 1st of last year. And my recovery was like that.
Wow.
Nice.
And you said it was the second one you'd had?
Well, I've had 2 360 spinal fusions. L2 through S1 is cages. And then the cervical fusion that happened just last year was C3 through C6. But my recovery with the cervical fusion last year, it was nothing. It was nothing compared to the lumbar fusion when I was deeply asleep and
Right.
angry and victimized. So it's very interesting seeing the healing process when you go into it with a completely different vibration,
Yeah. I totally get it. What, if any, feedback did you get from physicians? Your physicians did they have a response to it? Did they have an explanation, or they just sort of all shoulders, just wondering what's going on?
They said it was a fluke. I know that so this was back in 2017 when I went to my physician and I said, I can't take this Oxycontin, Dilaudid, Percocet, Vicodin. I can't take this stuff anymore. I'm a walking zombie. I need to stop.
Right.
And he said, well, it's premature to stop. And I was like, you didn't hear me, And so it wasn't fun, like detoxing myself from that. And it was awful for about a week.
Yeah.
But I did it. And I can tell you this, that my pain was exactly the same, completely off of that medicine, as to when I'd been on it for almost 3 years, because the body had built that tolerance.
Right. Right.
And it was one of those things where I would rather feel pain than be a zombie that feels nothing and is angry at the world,
Yeah.
But no, my physicians think I'm nuts. Okay.
Well, plenty of people probably think that of me too. So then fast forwarding to November when you had this last procedure, what were you already in that time frame over the last 8 years thinking about what you're doing now for your clients or for people that you know? Was it building up to that? Was that like a jumping off point? Then you'd mentioned the past 6 months or so, you've kind of taken this, to a different step. So, um, what kind of led you to those next phase? And I guess I should preface this, and I think everyone goes through this to a certain extent, but this is through my own lens. And George, maybe you've got kind of your own way of looking at this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I look back through life, there are particular phases, and like the big one that you mentioned, Kat, I didn't have anything catastrophic like that, but um, last year and around the May timeframe, so about a year and a half now, I could call that my biggest jump from some level to this level as far as awakening. And there wasn't something like what happened to you, but there's just these smaller bites and progressive bites, and then there's bigger ones where you're like, wow, you can look back afterwards and say that was huge. But was it growing in your healing practice over time, or was that a big jumping off point in the fall last year?
It was a big jumping point. I was very content to have a very small business, and that the people that were supposed to meet me, they came into my life, and it was very much donation based, and you don't even have to pay me, like I just want to help. But
Right.
I was in a different situation and was engaged to someone, and he was able to provide and give me the soft era, and I made a personal decision to leave that relationship. And so it's pushing me to do things because I need to pay my bills.
Right.
So things are very different, and it seemed to have happened suddenly, but I think that Source was preparing me all along. I just, again, it was one of those things I had to get out of my own way, and stop being so freaked out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. How has it been since then, since that big kind of push that you gave yourself? Um,
Whew.
let me ask it a different way. How have expectations worked out? Have you been able to detach from expectations? George, you've mentioned this a couple times, and this has probably been a while ago, but George, I think you mentioned, what does every small business owner or business say? You have to have a roadmap. You've got to have a
Yeah.
game plan. But you can write those down. But sometimes, can you put it in your words, George? You
Yeah.
mentioned something
So
pretty
interesting. I
profound.
had an IT support business, and we were basically supporting small businesses, and it was just me at the time, and my wife, had a really good job. And I was going through coaching, and they had us, write out, where do you want to be like next year, the year after? Like, what are all the goals? What is your monthly revenue? What does it look like? The business, client types, all this stuff. And, one of the goals was to make X amount per month. Another one was for my wife to quit her job by X date and be working in the business. And we wrote a bunch of these things down. It was like 4 or 5 of these things, and put the book away, and never did planning. And okay, well, if we want to make this much per month, then that means we got to sell this and we got to do this. Like, we didn't break it all the way down like they tell you. Every business coach will tell you, you need to figure out if by this year you want to be making this, start going back month to month to month, and then plan out what you're doing this week, next week, and plan it all out. And then as long as you hit all that, you'll make it. Well, we didn't do any of that. We put the book away, just focused on having a good business, doing the right things, trying to make the best decisions for the client and for us, making sure it's win-win all around. Well, one day we decided, my wife was like, hey, let's go check that book. Remember, we wrote some goals down, because she was working in the business already and all this stuff. We had beaten, I think, the money amount by a year or two early. We had beat her, quitting her job and coming to work by a year or two early. We were just amazed at all the goals we hit and beat way ahead of time, and by more money or whatever it was, right? And it was just amazing because it's like they told us to do this, and we didn't do any of that. And we just did what was right all along the way, and we smashed all the goals early. And when we realized that, that became a testimonial. That became something that I told people is, look, as long as you live the right way and you're doing things that are good for everybody, especially in business, like you can't be a schemer and have a good
Mm,
life. You're going to be struggling. You're going to always be trying to scam people. You're building bad karma, all these things. But when you're doing everything in the best way possible, it's like Source just throws everything out there and shows you that, hey, you can do things
yeah.
doing it a more spiritual way. And I wasn't even realizing I was doing it at the time in a more spiritual way
Yeah.
versus just the, commercialized way or the capitalistic way or whatever, right? Where you're just focused on yourself and everything is scarce. So we didn't run like with scarcity mindset, none of that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I tell people, look, just do everything the right way. If you don't understand how to do something, then find out, but always try to do it what is right for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you're providing something for your clients and they're happy, and you have them in mind as well as you, like, you can't suffer for anybody. You can't be doing free
Right.
work all the time and all
Mm-hmm.
this stuff, and you can't be demanding a lot of money more than what it probably should be. But it worked out. It was amazing. I mean, didn't follow a plan, and I learned that if you plan, you probably won't make it because you're going to stress out about hitting every target. And when you're relaxed and you're doing what's right, it just flows. It all flows from Prime Creator, just like that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
For those of you maybe watching this and you're hearing George's story, you could say, well, that's not how it always happens. I tried that and it didn't. You're right. It depends on what way it might go and whatever your mindset is. But I would share this, and George, thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
That whatever your expectations are in your mind, as opposed to in your heart, and just letting things be what they'll be,
Mm-hmm.
it's likely that it's going to be unimaginably different. It might not be as good, or it might be amazingly better. And
Mhm.
while I'm a recovering project manager, so I say, I always have
Yeah.
somewhat of a plan, but I'm trying to let go of that plan a lot more. Not even trying anymore at this point.
Mhm.
But when you let go of those expectations, you detach from the outcome. It doesn't mean that you don't want to be successful. It means that there's an abundance and a success that you recognize is there, maybe in a wildly different place from what you thought it might be. And Pat, I don't know if you want to share, but prior to 2017, I don't know what you did as an occupation, but if you were to try to have a roadmap from then to 2025, would this even have been included in your path spiritually, personally, or professionally? I mean, would it even have been an inkling? Like if you could meet the 2016 version of you right now, would you even feel like the same person?
No, that's the thing is it's not the same person. Like the shift in consciousness was so dramatic that I look back and I'm like, you poor girl. Like you just
Yeah.
so lost and confused and
Mhm.
in that time loop of trauma, like just
Yeah, I hear you.
she's
There's
gone,
a
you know?
I have a very wise friend. It's George, by the way. I have a very wise friend that told me one time. He's like, "How many times, George, should you unalive yourself? Is it as much as possible, spiritually speaking?"
Yeah, I mean, I had read something that if you can't look at who you were last year and feel a little bit cringy about it, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, or I thought that, or
Right,
was thinking this was going to happen a certain way, like,
Yeah.
then you're not. Are you really progressing if you can't look at your past self and be like, oh, okay, that was a weirdo. They didn't know what they were doing. They weren't thinking right, and it's nice to look back and be able to basically roast yourself and know that you're making
right,
progress. That's how you
right.
know you're successful, when you can roast your past selves.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, not look back with a feeling of regret or anything else. I mean, your
No.
path is each of our paths are our paths. I almost visualize it like wherever you at this point in time. So let's say today, there's a spidering of different paths that each of us can take, and
Mhm.
some of those will be a path less taken. Some will be a path more common. You can choose what you choose, but ultimately, wherever you end up, you got there from wherever you were behind you. My point is
Yeah,
just to not have regrets about it.
sure.
Yeah,
Pat,
I'd like to add something, like what people don't think about too is that, like, your past is what made you today, right? And that's what
Yeah.
you had to learn. And sometimes you might take a step back, or it may look like your life is crumbling, or you're taking a different direction, and you don't see how you're going to get to what you think you want, but you will get to what you need,
Right.
eventually.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right. I totally agree.
Very true.
Kat, I'm curious if I can shift to the clients that you work with now. Do you feel like when do they? Let me back up. Do they find you typically online? I know I've met you through X. I don't know if they find you that way or your website, maybe other social media platforms. Do you meet them in quote real life?
Yes.
How are they typically drawn to you, or does it just kind of happen? How does that
It
work?
varies. I mean, I do have existing clients that I see in person and then have met a few just in random ways the past few weeks, just, being out and about and then online as well.
I gotcha. Do you think that, painting a broad brush here, but for the clients that you're meeting now more recently, have they had a CAT 2017 sort of wake up call like you did? Are they, I know it all varies, but is there any patterns that you can see as far as what place in their journey they are from an awakening standpoint? Are they
Yes.
are they much more awake so they can embrace something like a service that you or the services you provide, or not? Is that typically how it happens?
It varies. And that's a really interesting question because looking back when I was doing a lot of free work, I met individuals who very much embodied victim consciousness. And I was able to hold space for that because I was in victim consciousness for so many years.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, like recently, over the past few months, I haven't met anyone that's in victim consciousness.
I I wonder, well,
Just
why do you think that is? I'm curious. What do you think? Push you on the spot.
the, the like be transparent here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like why do you think that changed for you?
Oh, because I often think that our clients mirror us. And I think
Okay.
that there was some blind spots that I wasn't seeing appropriately over the past few years, where there was probably still some of that residual victim consciousness. And I didn't even see it. Honestly, it's not coming together till right now. So
Right.
if I look like, whoa,
Well, and I'm glad that you said that before I jumped into any theories that I had, because that hadn't, speaking of blind spots, like that was one that I had. I was thinking probably more 3D. Like I'm thinking, okay, well, if Kat was giving things for free, which I understand, you're establishing a business, you're trying to sort of just find your own, sea legs underneath this, let alone people coming to you. Maybe you're saying yes to a lot of people that you hadn't necessarily, that you wouldn't maybe now when you're trying to, keep bills paid and who you're going to work with. But the mirroring makes a lot of sense. I not on your level, Kat, at least that I'm aware of, but um, I was giving healing sessions, call it focused prayer, but healing sessions for several months there, until I returned to the workforce. And there's a particular individual that I had many sessions with, probably over 50, and I've done maybe 100. So like half of me was devoted to this person. And the person mentioned that there were benefits and things like that, but I also could see the amount. I was happy to invest the amount of time, but I could also see when that person would either, they would do things or talk with people or get themselves almost back into the same kind of place. So it almost felt like I was band-aiding the situation. Like I helped clean out the wound, and I would say things and do everything like that, but I was still band-aiding it because he would continue kind of going down that path. And so it was a hard decision for me, but I actually stopped. I stopped in general, just for a period of time. I felt like I had gotten to a point with him and just in my current journey there that I was called to do things differently and give myself
mm-hmm.
time for that. And I reflect on him in particular saying, but you're doing so much good. I can feel so much good. There's other people you can help. And I agree with that. But what I finally got to the point of is detaching from that outcome of
Yeah.
quote unquote helping people, as
Yes.
opposed to realizing I need to also do more inner work. Like I was expecting, okay, well, this is it. Now I know all the answers and I'm a healer and this is the person and some of the people maybe listening on the podcast are like, I haven't heard this from Adam before. Well, now you do. Um, and wonderfully, not only have I progressed since then, when he's not involving himself in the situations that I think he now knows, he got better as well for himself. Not every day. We still, exchange communications, but that was a huge thing for me. And I don't know if that helps translate to either of you, but there's a point in time when you have to realize your purest form of love and compassion is helping people, but
Yes.
not to the detriment either of yourself or even them. That you're
Exactly.
serving more as a prop as opposed to one of many guideposts that people should use for themselves. So Kat, have you had that with any
Oh,
of your
yeah.
clients? Yeah. How was it?
Yeah.
Was it difficult for starting, like what I've just described? Like, have you had an example like that?
Yes. What you spoke of resonates deeply.
Yeah.
And for me, some healers, I think, want you to be dependent on them, and
Right.
some do not. They want you to tap into your innate power and start working with your spiritual gifts. But some people are not receptive to that, and
Right.
they can say, oh, I can't do it, only you can't. No, that's not true at all,
Right.
and there's that fine line between, am I helping someone or am I enabling them?
Yep.
It's like, okay, you come
Bingo.
in and I clear density and I pull this and that and then pump you with love and send you on your way, and you go right back to the same behavior that caused all this density. Then it's just, again, like a time loop. And
Right.
then it felt like it almost, I don't know how to say this, almost like whatever attachments or density might have been there, that it became like a game for that energy.
Right.
And so it's like, haha, I'm back, and it's just like, man, I don't want to do this. Like, you do
Right.
you. It's obviously not this healing.
Yeah.
Like, let's just call it,
Yeah.
There's an authenticity to what you're describing because, I mean, like you mentioned, like with anything that can be quote unquote good, um, people will not necessarily take advantage of that, but people that can call themselves healers or doctors or whatever else, you can get into this kind of loop where you're like, well, I'm helping and it's me and it's just innately what I do. And yes, we all have unique values, but there's a point in time when the patient has to realize that it's for them. I think of this silly little meme, or maybe it's a video where there's like a sheep that's stuck in a ditch. I don't know if either of you seen this, but like a farmer sees the sheep that's in this like drainage ditch. And so he works really hard, gets all muddy and pulls the sheep out and just sits it right up on the top of the bank. And the sheep just goes out and goes right back into the ditch. He's like, all right, I guess I'm doing this again So it's a silly example, but to say there's a point in time when you have to decide as anyone, and not just talking about healers, just people helping each other, that if that person's going to continue just repeating those cycles, you have to realize that helping them sometimes is stepping back and
Yes.
observing.
And it's interesting, like it personal. This is in my personal life, is that I found myself in this time loop with someone, and it was like they would say one thing and want to heal and blah blah blah, and I'd rush in with my light and let's do this, and then 60 days later, same thing over and over, and then it became where I was attached to the outcome, and so
Right.
You have to
that's not
fix
good.
them. I can fix them.
I can
Right.
cure their cancer. I can do
Yeah.
this, yes. And then it became
Yeah.
egoic based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a lot harder to run source energy when you're filled with ego and attached to the outcome. And so it was becoming detrimental to that individual and to myself. And then that's when I knew, like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, this is not how Source wants to use me, because I wouldn't feel this crappy if it was, you
Yeah.
know?
I agree. I'm trying to look up a quote here. I think I posted this. It might even been yesterday. Let me just see if I can pull it up real quick. All right. Maybe someone's heard this, but the highest virtue is not virtuous. Therefore, it has virtue. The lowest virtue holds on to virtue. Therefore, it has no virtue. Meaning,
Mm.
being virtuous for the sake of saying, hey, I'm virtuous and I've done this and I've done that. That's actually not virtuous. And I know that's maybe hard. Well, I want to do good because it makes me feel better.
Mhm.
That's good to a certain extent until that's the only reason that you're doing good,
Mm-hmm.
because someone's watching over your shoulder, or because, what will Kat or George think of me if I say, well, I've helped people. That in and of itself, I think it's a hard concept. Maybe, I mean, even for me.
Well, that's kind of putting it outward, right? That's putting, well, what do these people think about me? Do they see me as
Mm-hmm.
virtuous? Do they see me as a good
Right.
person? And really, then you're not doing it in the right way. It should be, okay, what internally am I growing? Am I doing things that help me
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time help the world?
Yeah.
You have to look inward and think, okay, am I going to be better after this? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's painful or easy or whatever, is there value in there to me and the whole world, not
Right.
just what do people think about me, are they going to see me a certain way? Because really that doesn't matter. And then you may not be your authentic self.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I think that's well said. I mean, I've been having recent conversations with someone I know, a neighbor, and he is more on the religious side,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm more on the spirituality side. And the great thing is that we can, they're not even debates because they're not at that level. It's him standing his ground and talking on things, and me too. If you were listening to the conversation, you'd be like, there's no argument here. But the
Mm-hmm.
things are actually they seem pretty polarized right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
he has shared with me that he feels like there's an absolute truth, and there's good and there is bad. And that while I can appreciate that there's things that are good and bad, there's a transcendence past that duality. Meaning, if 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 God, if you will, is master and domain of the spiritual realm, whatever that may be for anyone who feels that they understand it, and the earth realm, if he's master of both, if Source is master of both, if Prime Creator is master of both, then he's also master of good and evil. And things are what they are. Does that mean we're supposed to just ignore travesties and things like abuse and other types of things? No, it doesn't mean that. But it also means loving a person enough or a situation enough to be able to detach from the outcome, to
Yeah.
do what you can, to provide what you can, but also not tie yourself to that anchor that is the outcome, because that's going to drown you.
Yeah.
I think. But what do you both think of that? I mean, what struggles or lack thereof have you had with moving past duality of a good and bad, a right and a wrong, goodness or the badness?
I've kind of been talking a lot more about that lately because I've been doing a lot of responses to people that were angry. It kind of came out with the Charlie Kirk stuff, right? Too many people are angry about everything, right? And there's too much fighting. And I look at it from a different perspective. That first of all, I'm not just taking everything that they're showing us as being true around that situation, but
Right.
we definitely don't need to lose our humanity and our love and kindness in this situation either. So, for example, I see people talking about going after the left and that we can't live with them anymore and we can't do this and that, and then you see people on the left doing their stuff, and like everyone's just fighting, and I just keep telling people that, look, your hatred and anger and vengeance is going to kill you. It's going to make things worse. Like you have to look beyond good and evil is what I keep telling them. You have to look at what does everything mean? Why are these things happening? Whether they're real or not. And do you really have any kind of negative outcome on you just because this event happened over there, right? Like, how did
Right.
it really affect you? And why are you generating all this anger and hatred and posting all these
Mhm.
things? And it doesn't
Mhm.
make any sense. I just see everyone fighting, and it's like, okay, it's not really as bad as you think it is. And yet, and you just have to look beyond the good and evil. You have to understand that the good things have a purpose, the bad things have a purpose, and sometimes they're not as good or as bad as you think they are.
Yeah.
You have to pay
Mhm.
attention. And I see a whole lot of people not paying attention to anything. They're just, sitting there, maybe just staring at the TV essentially, and not going out and looking at other sources of information, or going and doing other things that are really beneficial to their spiritual growth. So it's almost like there's a de-evolution happening in civilization, like as far as being a civil society, like it's
Right.
evolving. But even that is not a reason for concern. It just means that we have to put this message out more, right? Like,
Yep.
start holding people to it. Like, if they say, okay, well, this needs to happen to this person, okay, let's go down that path. What if this happens to this person now, and you were the one that did it? How does that affect you? How does it affect them? How does it affect your family, your kids? Like, let's go and think, have these mental,
Mhm.
experiments and thoughts, and go through it, and really go down that path. And what do you think is going to happen? Is it ultimately going to be good or bad? Your vengeance or revenge or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm at these days. I'm like just trying to let people know, hey, this isn't really what you think it is, and maybe you could
Mhm.
focus on something else instead. Don't be wrapped up. It comes back to the being tied to the outcome. You want an outcome. You're trying to force an outcome,
Right.
and just watch everything. Do what's best for you and your family. Try to be kind to everyone. Don't assume just because someone is Republican or Democrat that they're your enemy. Like, really, it's much more than that.
Mhm.
We've always
Mhm.
been divided, so in many ways, and it's just like, why not do something different? It obviously is not how you like it to be now, so why
That's
continue that path?
that's
Mhm.
right. Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, kind of like you mentioned, Kat, time loops. Kat, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, yes, I'm just seeing it as so much separation and division. And so, regardless, and by the way, I was a poli sci major, so, and I was a liberal when I was in undergrad, and now I'm not, you know. But at the end of the day, like, where if there's hatred going, it doesn't matter what side it is, it's still
Right.
hatred, or it's still fear mongering, or it's still really upsetting and creating more strife, and there's no resolution. It just feels like a loose vacuum, like I'm just having all of my energy sucked from me to
Yeah.
support some system that I don't even believe in,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so it's very, like, for me, I'm cognizant of it very much so, because
Right.
I'm so much of the healing process for me was being is somatic, so being in the body. So if I'm like, flipping through the social media, and then I'm feeling myself tense up or feel this rage start to build up, I'm like, okay, that's all I need to know with what that energy was that I was
Right.
beginning to get sucked into. And just to take a step back, ground in the light, pray. And people are going, like, I have noticed, like, my left friends think that, you know, I'm detached and cold and don't see how so and so was a racist. And I'm like, okay, well, at the end of the day, let's say he was a racist. Does that mean he deserves death? I mean, my God, that
yeah,
doesn't, that's senseless to me. And then I'm like, oh, okay. So they're not thinking clearly. And then the
yeah.
right, like, so angry, like they claim to, like, be like faith based and conservative and family values. Okay, well, then why do you have so much hatred?
That's
Right.
right.
So I'm just like, no, thank you. Just
Mhm.
no.
I agree with you, and I even think of I even think of anyone that might listen to this and they hear a reference to the left or a reference to the right, and may get triggered from that even too, to be like, but no, but this happened, or hopefully not get triggered. I mean, it's what you're both saying makes a lot of sense for me of where
It's not just political division either. It's religious division, it's sports teams, it's video games. I have
Yep.
Xbox, I have PlayStation. It's like all these things. Like, you want to argue and fight about everything, or what kind of watch, or what car you're driving, or
right.
like, where do you live? Like, everything was competition. Everything is an argument. Like, you can argue about anything, right?
Yep.
George, if
And
you
it's
if
like,
you and
why
I don't like
bother?
the same sports team, we can't be friends anymore.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
sorry, I can't be friends with you. Um, Kat, you mentioned a term I was about to, so you mind reader. I was going to say loosh, and so
Yeah.
for those of us who might not be aware, can you explain that a little bit in your own terms?
Me?
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. So essentially, like fear, shame, anger, any of like those really intense, like low vibrational energies, they can be harvested and then they can be funneled to support the illusion of, Maya or the Matrix.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. Now I've got a question for you about this then.
Okay.
Um, I had seen on a post, and it's the first time I'd ever seen it, so I might have no idea. I've just started to sort of think about this. Where they mentioned Lush being the same emotions that you mentioned, but also like euphoric joy, meaning like overjoyed, as opposed to like calmness. And it had me wondering because like in my times of meditation, there have been times when I've had euphoria. I mean, almost like to the point of a substance. And I've now felt that I've moved past that. Maybe not ultimately. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
expectations of where it will go, but I've moved past that to a calmness. And
Mm-hmm.
I've found that that calmness allows those moments of meditation where it's deep silence and peace to stay longer if I'm not euphoric about it. Um, could Lush also include like overjoyed moments like that too, or is it more negative emotions? Do you think? Just your personal opinion.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And
Mhm.
then, and like you said, like there's the difference between like the grounded joy
Yeah.
versus the flood of euphoria that sometimes can be false light. Like it just floods your system. And
Right.
so, like you said, like the euphoria and stuff like that, it very much can be loose.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if y'all ever saw this Pixar movie called Inside Out, but it's the one where all the emotions are different little characters inside the main
Oh yeah.
character's head.
Yeah.
And that movie actually shows what you're talking about, Adam, about even the joy. Like joy is always just chasing happiness, and you're suppressing all the other emotions then, and you don't um, that if that's running your life too, then you're not
Mm-hmm.
in balance. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
balance. So I view all the emotions as just different ways, different frequencies, and it's not necessarily like they have values as far as this is very bad or very good. It's like, no, all the emotions are emotions. Let's
That's
just
right.
say they're all on the same level, and if you have to balance it all out, and if you're too much of one, it can lead you astray, whether you feel it's good or bad.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah, and that kind of goes
Mm-hmm.
back to what you mentioned, Kat, as far as some people observing that you're, cold or too calm or whatever else. Well, you don't have any emotions. You're not. Uh, it maybe some people could feel that way, but also it could be a calmness of just not
Mm-hmm.
getting too high, not getting too low, just sort of staying right in the middle. It doesn't mean that you're
Mm-hmm.
uncaring or unfounded. It means you're balancing all that. And for those
Mm-hmm.
of us who might not get down with the term of loosh, I'll use a different terminology that's science based, I guess if you can call it that way. So Greg Braden talks about it. He's made references. I don't know what the medical studies are, but our DNA, at
Mm-hmm.
least for negative emotions, your DNA is a coil, and the more anxious you are, or whatever. See if I can get up to the camera. It tightens and it makes that coil of your DNA really really tight. And when you either are expressing pure love, which again has no attachment to outcome, that DNA starts to loosen. And that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean it breaks apart. It means that it is more open for transformation and for healing
Mm-hmm.
and for health. So, um, very
I
interesting.
love that.
Yeah. 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 I only recently had I read that about too much joy. I'm like, gosh, well, here's one more thing we have to pay attention to. And I moved past that pretty quickly. And I'm like, it makes a lot more sense because if you're so euphoric and fun and you're just chasing a different type of dragon like you would with drugs or
Yeah.
whatever else, it's the same concept as
Yeah, I
opposed
mean, ice
to,
cream tastes good, right? But should you have it every day and several times a day?
yeah, no, probably not.
Mhm.
I mean,
What's going to
Mhm.
happen there, right? It's good, right? It's
that's
tasty.
right.
It's nice.
That's right. Yeah, there's a discipline
Mhm.
involved, isn't it, to be balanced.
Mhm.
And discipline can feel really boring and really like calculated and cold, but I would disagree. I don't think it
Mhm.
is. I don't think it is.
I think being balanced is the ultimate thing to reach for. One of the ultimate ways to be is just balance in everything. Um, I find that when I'm most balanced, everything just seems easy. Everything
Right.
just seems right. It's not like you have the perfect day and everything went well. It's like, no, maybe a glass fell and broke, but it wasn't a big deal. You
Right.
cleaned it up, and maybe it was just enough. Like my mom says, when someone spills something or makes a mess, it's an opportunity to clean, because if you think
Mm,
about it, you probably didn't clean that spot right in a
Right.
while, and now that this mess happened, now you're cleaning that whole counter, right?
That's right.
So that's one thing that I always love. My mom would say it's opportunity to clean.
I like that. I
Yeah,
like
I like it
that.
too. It definitely sounds like something a mom would say. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
Well, we need to clean that anyway. It's been a while.
yeah.
Um, Kat, you mentioned that when you'd removed yourself from that relationship and you went more into what you're doing now,
Hmm.
um, how has it been for you balancing the the pressure of needing to pay bills and needing to make sure that that you have at least a minimum viability for yourself and your quality of life, and allowing source, allowing the universe to bring things to you? How has that balance been for you?
It's been an awakening in itself, you know? Because going back to what we were all talking about, like having those expectations, I think initially I went into it having expectations and goals. And then I saw very quickly that that wasn't going to work out if
Right.
I was holding on to that. And if my energy was so focused on holding on, it wasn't focused on what source wanted me to be focused on.
Right.
And so now it's a lot different approach, and I'm really honoring like where my passion fills that day, and that's where I'm guided, to do or that kind of content to record. Um, if I'm not feeling it on Instagram, I'm not going to force myself to spend 30 minutes per day on it,
Mhm.
and
Right.
just learning to go with that. And there have been so many moments where I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how this is going to work out.
Right.
And if it doesn't work out, I have a plan B. Like, I'm going to be
Mhm.
okay, but like, I don't know. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to get out of the way,
Right.
and just
Yeah.
be very clear on the intention and then get out of the way.
Right.
And things will just line up in the most bizarre ways. And it's just like, thank you so much, Source. Because a lot of times it's like, I was getting so frustrated. I was just like, am I not supposed to be doing this? Like, I felt like everything had aligned to push me to do it. And then I'm like, did I get it wrong? Like, if I'm not
I think
seeing this
self doubt is a
clearly,
big component of the process.
what's that?
I think self doubt is a big component of the process.
So much. But I'm like, okay, well, if I got the message wrong, then show me. Like I
Right.
just don't know. I don't know. I'm so confused. Show me what I'm supposed to do, creator. Like, please, I want to do your work. And then it's like, be this lag, and then suddenly boom boom boom, everything lines up, and it's just like there's no way that I could have done that, no
Yeah.
way at all. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, all right, thank you, I'll keep going.
Well, it brings to mind something that's recently I've recently in meditation and in prayer, I've been asking more from Prime
Mm,
Creator.
yeah.
Where before I was only expressing gratitude, now I'm doing both. So for the
Good.
two of you, question to the both of you: are you more focused right now on sharing or expressing gratitude for whatever occurs, or are you asking for things too? What do you think, Kat?
Both, definitely. I
Okay.
mean, I think the gratitude is the foundation for everything. And now
Mhm.
it's not like I'm asking for specific things. It's more like, am I on the right path? Is this how it's supposed to go? Like,
Yeah,
please show me.
I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, it was. I mean, I've always had gratitude and appreciation, and you know, when you talk about asking for things, I think probably for all three of us, we may have moved from, I want my bills paid, or I want to have a house here, or car this or that. I bet we're probably all just asking for the bigger things, like, let humanity rest and wake
Mhm.
up, let these issues work out. I'm sure we're probably all thinking about those things now. So asking
Yeah.
of much bigger things and just being grateful as things are progressing. And there were a lot of things that I fully believed were going to happen, and that, um, it probably seemed like a crazy person when I was saying all these things a year or so ago. And now I
Right.
see everything happening, and it's like, okay, so it is happening like I thought it would happen. And is that my discernment? Is that my creating the world I want to be in? Is it all the above? Is it Prime Creator just showing me what's possible? It may be all of the above, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm at a place where I'm asking for bigger things and just being grateful for what I have, and not really worried about myself, and things for me. Like, I just know things are going to work out, right? If we need money, money will show up. I don't need to worry about it, however form or fashion it's going to be. And
Right.
people don't, maybe they're focused too much on how something needs to be. I was telling a friend the other day that was, talking about gold and XRP and certain things. And I was like, I believe that instead of wanting or asking for money, or hoping money's going to come, it's like, well, what's really more important? Like, do you need money because you need a surgery, or do you need money because you need this other thing? What's the real thing you need? What's
That's
the
right.
real thing that will be good? Don't worry about how it's going to show up. Don't worry about money, so then you can do things. Just be like, okay, these are the things I really want. I don't need anything else. It may just show up, and then you don't know how it's going to happen.
You don't. No, you really don't. Yeah, and waiting for things to come, or allowing money. I'm going to call it abundance,
Mhm.
to enter your life. That doesn't mean you're sitting on the couch, all day every day watching the news or something. It
Yeah.
means you're still doing things. It doesn't mean you're just devoid of any activity. It just means you're allowing it how it happens. I haven't. Well, I'm starting to get to the point, George, to ask for bigger things, but I'll give an interesting example. And many can dismiss this. I did not. I was flying across the country last week, and I had to sign my son up for their winter season, and it has to happen at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, because that's when it is. If you're late by 3 minutes, you're out. So my flight was at 7. We got up above whatever 1,000 feet it is, and I got my laptop open, and Wi-Fi was on. Everything was fine. About an hour and a half before that deadline, the Wi-Fi dropped out. And they came over the announcement. All right, Wi-Fi is going to be done for the entire flight. So, good luck. And I'm like, this is a really silly thing to ask God help for, but I'm going to do it. I, I,
Mhm.
I asked God, I said, God, if it is your will that Wi-Fi does not come on, I'll find some other, thing for him. I'm trying to provide this to my son.
Mhm.
I said, but whether it comes back on or it doesn't, that's by your will. And I framed it in that ask, and then I just gave it over to God. And about a half hour later, the Wi-Fi came back on, and they said it was going to be on for the entirety, and everything went on its
Mhm.
way. And I just kind of took a little bit of time, just looking out the window, just appreciating and showing gratitude. Now, that might sound to the two of you or others, be like, that's a really silly thing. You wanted to sign your son up for winter season,
It's a big
basketball. I
deal.
mean, right. And that was, I think that was a really great lesson for me to get more comfortable with asking for things from source, because up until that point I really just expressed gratitude and felt like maybe I didn't feel worthy to ask for things.
Mm,
Maybe
mm,
that's possible. And
Yeah.
so I'm not at the point yet, George, but I'm getting closer to ask for big things.
Mhm.
But that was a good lesson for me. It was a great
Yeah,
gift.
and small or big, I mean, how are we assigning value to it, right? Even at that moment, like, maybe that thing that you asked for, it sets you off on a whole different timeline that brings some kind of greatness. Who knows?
Right.
I mean, we don't know. The things we think may be big may not be the things that may be small or not. But I'll tell you what, nothing is too big or small to ask for Creator.
mhm.
That's right. That's right.
Well said.
Yeah.
Mm.
I know we're coming up on time. Kat, is there? I wanted to say first, Kat, when we close this off, we say goodbye to everyone. Hang on for just a couple seconds while this little silly thing downloads, it'll only be a couple seconds afterwards, but I wanted to let you know that we didn't say it beforehand. Is there anything you want to send us home with, Kat, from your perspective or where you're at today?
I think that as whatever you want to call it, the path of initiates or awakened ones, whatever you want to call it, I think that when your soul has chosen that in this lifetime, I think that a lot of us are reluctant to have boundaries or to put ourselves or our families, that self-respect, above. And I'm just seeing more and more of so many people that don't want to do the inner work and they want to feed on someone else's energy. And I just really want to emphasize the importance of being strong with the boundaries and to know that it's not wishing someone harm, but the
Right.
only way that they'll ever heal or learn to connect to source themselves is if we stop letting them feed off of us. And that's really all I wanted to say.
I appreciate you sharing that. There was another synchronicity here. There was a post I'd made, I don't know, a little while ago that mentioned anyone that is triggered by your boundaries is probably one of the reasons why you needed the boundaries in the
Yeah,
first place.
that's right.
Very true.
Yeah. George, send us home. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that was great.
Kat, George, thank you very much for making the time.
Yeah, thank you
Everyone,
both.
thank you for making
Thank
the
you.
time to join as well. Both of you hang on for a moment. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you so
We
much.
appreciate you.
Till next time.